Right now, you're probably working a soul-crushing job, or preparing for one, or recovering from one. But for like 99% of human existence, jobs literally didn't exist. No applications, no awkward Zoom interviews, no 2-week notices, and zero corporate BS. For roughly 290,000 years, modern humans lived completely without employment, without toxic bosses breathing down their necks, and without the concept of a weekend. So what did these absolute legends actually do all day? The answer isn't what you'd expect. Let's clear something up first. Ancient humans weren't lazy bums. They worked hard, but their work looked absolutely nothing like our depressing corporate grind. There were no specialists, no one introduced themselves at parties as a hunter or a gatherer like it was some career path or a LinkedIn flex. You just did what needed doing when it needed doing. And then you literally just stopped. Anthropologists studying modern hunter-gatherer societies found something completely mind-blowing. These groups, living similarly to our ancient ancestors, worked roughly 3 to 5 hours per day. That's literally it.
The rest of the time? Socializing, taking long naps, playing games, storytelling, making random cool stuff, or just straight up existing. Compare that to the average modern worker grinding 8 hours at the office, wasting 2 hours in traffic, and checking late-night Slack messages. We call this progress. But here's what's super strange. Early humans weren't constantly scrambling for survival like an action movie. That's a total myth we've been brainwashed with. Archaeological evidence shows something completely different. They had an absolute abundance of food in most regions. Hunting and gathering, when you actually know what you're doing, is absurdly efficient. You don't need a 40-hour work week to feed yourself when you're literally eating whatever grows naturally all around you. The Hadza people of Tanzania still live as OG hunter-gatherers. Researchers track their time with timers. Men hunt for about 2 hours each morning.
Women gather for 3 to 5 hours, usually in squad groups, gossiping and talking the entire time. By afternoon, they're completely done. The evening is for hanging out, playing games, jamming to music, and sleeping. Kids just play without any structured iPad activities. No one is trying to optimize their productivity or grind set. This wasn't poverty. This was pure abundance. Ancient humans had something we've completely lost in the modern world. They had time. Massive, ridiculous amounts of unstructured, unhurried time. Time to develop insane knowledge of their environment. Time to create art. The oldest known cave paintings are over 40,000 years old. These weren't made by graphic designers during work hours. They were made by people who had all the time in the world to create beauty for its own sake. They made flex jewelry from shells and bones. They carved actual flutes out of vulture wings. They told complex stories that we still tell versions of today. None of this was their job. It was just life.
So when did jobs actually start ruining everything?
The massive shift happened about 12,000 years ago with agriculture. And spoiler alert, it was not an upgrade. When humans started farming, something unexpected happened. They began working way more, not less. Farming demands non-stop labor. Planting, weeding, harvesting, storing, and protecting crops from animals and rival tribes. Crops don't take weekends off. Skeletons literally tell the whole story. When archaeologists compare the bones of hunter-gatherers to early farmers, the farmers show insane signs of physical stress, horrible diseases, and severe malnutrition. Their teeth are terrible, they're noticeably shorter, and they die way younger. Agriculture didn't make life easier, it just made survival possible for more people in one spot. But those people worked way harder and lived miserable, shorter lives. And once you start farming, you're trapped. Hunter-gatherers could just pack up and leave when food ran low. Farmers were totally stuck. They'd invested months into crops and built permanent huts.
They had to stay and defend their loot. That's when ownership became a huge deal. When you're nomadic, you can't own much because you gotta carry it. But farmers accumulate stuff, store grain, and claim land. And suddenly, some people have way more than others. Then comes specialization. In a hunter-gatherer tribe, everyone knows how to do pretty much everything. But in agricultural societies, you get potters, weavers, builders, and soldiers, people who only do one specific thing. And if you only do one thing, you desperately need other people to survive. You need to trade, you need systems, and you need hierarchy. That's where jobs came from, not from progress, but from pure dependency. Once you specialize, you're trapped in the system. A potter can't just decide to quit making pots and go hunting. They've lost that skill and rely entirely on others. And here's the part that should really mess with your head. We never individually chose this. No one woke up one day and voted that 9-to-5 jobs were better. It happened gradually over thousands of years as societies grew massive and insanely complex. By the time anyone realized what freedom had been traded away, it was way too late to go back. But what exactly did we trade away? We traded total autonomy for basic security, and we've been desperately trying to buy it back ever since. Hunter-gatherers made decisions as a squad. There were no bosses, and no one could boss you around or force you to do anything. If you hated the vibe, you could literally just leave. Anthropologists call this fierce egalitarianism. It wasn't a political philosophy. It was pure survival. Groups that let one toxic person dominate simply didn't last. But jobs literally require hierarchy. Someone owns the land, the tools, and the product, while someone else provides the labor. That's not a collaboration. That's a power structure. And once that structure exists, it spreads like wildfire. Early cities had kings, priests, merchants, and laborers. The laborers worked the absolute hardest and owned the least. They couldn't leave because all the land was claimed and all the resources were locked down. Freedom became a luxury flex that only the super wealthy could afford. For most of human history after agriculture, the average person worked from sunrise to sunset, 6 or 7 days a week. Farmers, servants, laborers, they worked until their bodies completely gave out. This wasn't a career, it was brutal survival. The concept of a job, as we know it, something separate from your whole identity, didn't solidify until the Industrial Revolution. Factories suddenly needed human robots at specific times doing specific repetitive tasks. You didn't work your own land anymore. You literally sold your time. 8, 10, 14 hours a day in a dark building you didn't own, making products you never use for pennies that barely kept you from starving. Kids were working in terrifying coal mines. Women worked in textile mills, breathing in cotton fibers that destroy their lungs. People died in factory accidents so frequently that it barely even made the news. This was marketed as progress and civilization. Labor movements had to fight back hard. Unions literally bled and fought for weekends, 8-hour workdays, and basic safety rules. These weren't generous gifts from nice CEOs. They were won through massive strikes, violence, and decades of intense resistance. The 40-hour workweek, which we now view as standard and barely enough to survive on, was considered a radical dream back in 1926. But here's the wild part. We won those battles, and then we just stopped fighting. We accepted that working 40 hours a week, 50 weeks a year, for 40 or 50 years of your life was totally normal and reasonable. We built our whole society around it. Mortgages, car payments, insurance, retirement plans. Everything assumes you'll keep grinding forever. And it's still not enough. Productivity has exploded like crazy since the 1970s. Technology was supposed to set us free. Computers, automation, the internet. We produce more value per hour than ever before in human history, but wages completely stagnated while work hours didn't go down at all. We just work harder for less. The average modern worker now works significantly more hours per year than a medieval peasant. That's not an exaggeration at all. Medieval laborers had Sundays off, plus tons of saints' days, harvest festivals, and massive breaks in the winter when farming was impossible. They worked hard during harvest, but averaged around 1,500 hours a year. The modern worker grinds over 1,800 hours, often way more. We have shiny smartphones, but we're less free than people who lived in mud huts. We have advanced medicine, but we're stressed to the point of breakdown. We have insane abundance, but zero time to actually enjoy it. Because jobs aren't just what we do anymore, they're literally who we are. When you meet someone new, the very first question is, what do you do? Not, who are you? What do you love? What makes you feel alive? It's, what do you do for money? Your job is your entire identity, and if you lose it, society acts like you lost your purpose.
But for 290,000 out of the 300,000 years humans have existed, nobody had a job. They had skills, roles, contributions, community, and time. And they were us. Same brain, same capacity, same need for meaning. We didn't evolve to sit in uncomfortable chairs under blinding fluorescent lights, staring at glass screens, answering useless emails, and attending meetings about meetings. We evolved to move, create, connect, rest when we're tired, and work when we're motivated. Jobs aren't natural or inevitable. They're just a system we inherited. And maybe, just maybe, it's worth asking if the trade was actually worth it. Because we gave up a ton, and we're still paying the ultimate price. We call this civilization and progress, but our ancient ancestors who painted caves, carved flutes, and knew every plant in their territory had something we're desperately trying to buy back with limited vacation days and retirement plans. They had their actual time, and we're still grinding just to get ours back.